Welcome back to Intentional Improvement. I'm your host, Erica LeMarr. Okay, guys, my guest today is a powerhouse leader who has transitioned from professional sports into the corporate industry and corporate world. After her career in the WNBA, she went on to work in large companies such as Target, PepsiCo, and Advanced Auto Parts. Now, the president of Flynn Group, which is a major operator of franchise restaurants such as Applebee's, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, Panera Bread, and several others, she is here to share her journey and insights on resilience, leadership, discipline, and how to make an everlasting impact. Rasheeda Clark, welcome to the show.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. So great to be here.
This has been a long time coming. We have been scheduling this and planning this, but life has its ways of just pulling us left and right, so I'm glad you could make it.
Absolutely. Been looking forward to it since we had our initial discussion, and so honored to be here.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, you have such a beautiful and dynamic story that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I want you to take us back to what your life was like, before basketball, before discipline. What does life like that look for you?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's taking us way back. I don't want to date myself, but to talk a little bit just about like my history. Grew up single parent households. I'm the youngest of three children. And, some people would say like, do I have the younger child syndrome? But listen, for me, I think my household, my mother made the most out of, what she had, which was always sort of making the dollar stretch as far as possible. And so I would say, like, I didn't necessarily grow up without the things I needed, but there were a lot of things that oftentimes I wanted that I couldn't have. And I think growing up in my youth, like, that is something that sticks with you. Right. So you sort of have like this desire for things that you may not be able to attain young or early on. And it lights a fire, right? A drive to attain the things that you seek. And I would say that's something that stayed with me throughout my entire youth and into my college career and then into my professional career and now into my career, my field that I'm in today. So for me in my professional career, those things from very early on in life have sort of stayed with me. And that fire in my belly continues to be a source of energy and drive for me in everything I seek to achieve, right?
So let's unpack that because there's a lot to talk about there. What were some of the things that, you learned in your youth that you brought into your professional career?
Yeah, I'd say playing youth sports for me is really where I learned a lot about resilience, the contributions of an individual, and how that plays into the success of a team, right? So for me, whether it's soccer, whether it's tennis, whether it's basketball, I feel like youth sports is a platform where kids learn some of the skills and characteristics of becoming a very strong future leader are rooted in. Right. So for me, you think about sports, you're an athlete on a team of athletes. You have a head coach with a strategic playbook. You're constantly real time getting feedback on your performance. You learn how to bounce back from setbacks or losses. You look within to try to uncover how you could perform better to produce a favorable outcome. And I feel like those are some of the things in my youth that I learned early on that have served as a platform for my success today, right? And so you sort of take it from youth sports and it propels you into an opportunity to play collegiate sports, right? And for me, coming from a single family household, I wasn't gonna have an opportunity to go to Pepperdine University without a full ride scholarship.
And you saw that at a young age?
I saw that at a young age, that sports and basketball and some of those skills that I was learning could unlock future opportunities for me that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Fascinating. So you figured this out so young. And so sports became your sanctuary, or did you just pour yourself into it knowing that it was going to unlock opportunities for you?
I feel like it was a combination of both, right? I think that's a great sort of point to bring up. Like, was it my escape from the reality that can sometimes be daunting, right? Being in a household with a single parent. And so there was an opportunity to sort of create my own reality, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Like control your destiny, right? Like my future was in my own hands, depending on how successful I could go be. So there was this high desire and drive to build a better future. And sports essentially was going to be the avenue for me to get to a different place in life. Or at that time, it was almost like an alternate reality.
Wow.
Right? Because for me, I was the first of the 3 kids to graduate from college. Right.
Okay.
So my sister did not attend a college. My brother went to the Marines out of high school. So I was the first of the 3 kids to attend a 4-year university. So for me, it wasn't a playbook that existed within my household that said, here is how you get to college. Right. And here's how you may approach college to have a successful outcome. But it did exist within the sports world or part of my life. Right. So I had teammates that secured scholarships ahead of me. Right. And so I had that connectivity to other women in my life that sort of gave me the playbook to say, here is how you might achieve this. If you want it, the opportunity is there. So it became real by way of seeing other women on my team, my teammates, achieve it. So then for me, it became real.
Yeah.
A reality.
That's beautiful. So they helped steward your success because you guys were a team.
That's right.
That's
That's
beautiful.
right.
Yeah. I think, especially in the professional sports world, leadership is incredibly important. And if you don't have it, the entire team falls apart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's so interesting about sports is every member of the team, and I spoke about it earlier about roles. You understand the role you play on a team in order for the success of the greater group. But every position sort of has a different set of leadership characteristics in order for the team to be successful.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Like a point guard may be the general, right? And then you have a 2 guard that is the aggressor, maybe a type A personality, maybe carrying the weight of the scoring that's needed for the team to win, right? You think about a post player, they may be in more of a support position, right? They're rebounding and sort of cleaning up the board, some of the quotes or takeaways that you may hear while you're attending a basketball game, right? But each player serves a specific purpose for the desired outcome and achievements of the team.
I never thought how methodical the personalities and the structure of it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about some of the greats, like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, right? And then you think about some of the great point guards, like a Steve Nash, right? Each of them are leaders, great leaders individually, but collectively, when you put them on a court, think about USA basketball, where you sort of grab all of the all-stars from around the league. And each leader sort of brings a different set of characteristics in order for the team to have success. Right? And I believe those, when you see how those athletes show up in life outside of sports, those same leadership characteristics sort of run through ventures or business decisions they make outside of the sports world as well, right? So, yeah, I think it's deeper than sports, right? It also connects to that foundation that whether it's how you grew up, the household you come from, the community you come from, that sort of shows up on the court and after sports as well.
That's incredible. Yeah. So your career while in the WNBA, what were some of the biggest takeaways that you've learned, just being in that environment? And what were also some of the greatest challenges you've had?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm sitting up for this one.
This is a really good one. What I would say about my career in the WNBA in comparison to USA basketball and collegiate basketball, it was the first time in my career where I did not have a tremendous amount of success, right? Okay. It was the time in my career where everyone was an all-star, but at an extremely high level, right? USA basketball was a little taste of that, but WNBA was, it's the best of the best, the creme de la creme. And I was coming off of being riddled with injuries, right? So It was the time in my life where I did the most amount of soul searching, right? To sort of say, if I am not going to attain the desired outcome, which is to be an all-star in the WNBA, what are the other potential avenues based on what I have become sort of known for as an individual, known for as a leader, and identifying those transferable skills that may make me successful in another lane.
How old were you at this time?
21, 22.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
21,
Soul searching
22.
at 21, 22
Yeah,
years
soul
old.
searching. Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
the same time when you had a lot of injuries, right?
That's right. So that's sort of what brought about that time of soul searching. Right. So I had at the time this love for sports and I wanted to make this my career. And I didn't necessarily want to go overseas, which at the time, based on annual salary and pay in the WNBA, you really needed to be open to playing overseas if you wanted to make an annual salary that you could actually live off of. Right. And so for me, I didn't want to go overseas. I wasn't having the success of my career domestically in the WNBA that I'd had leading up to the WNBA. And so for me, it was the fork in the road.
Okay.
It was continue this drive down the sports path, which was, for me coming into it, that was all I knew at the time. Right?
Yeah.
You think about my career, right? A lot of success in college. Playing USA basketball was a big achievement, representing my country overseas in the World University Games. So for me, I had enough examples of being able to attain the success I was looking for in the WNBA, but I didn't have enough results to say, this is the path you needed to stay on, or I should stay on. Right? So I had to sort of say, okay, what does it look like? What might it look like if I chose to go down the corporate path? Right.
It's so interesting. I think God has a funny way of pulling us from one thing to another and just transitioning us into where we actually are meant to go.
Yeah.
Now, going into the corporate world, what did that look like for you, transitioning from the WNBA, professional sports, into, what was the first company? Was it Target?
It was Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Oh, man, let's talk about it.
Oh, Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Let's talk about it.
You know, I think for me, it was the realization that I'd spent the majority of my collegiate career missing out on career fairs, right? You didn't have an opportunity to attend that. I didn't have an opportunity to do an internship, right? Everything was basketball. So to myself, I thought, I need to find a place where I can pick up some of the most basic components of leadership outside of sports.
I love that you're sticking with the foundations because the basics always work.
Right. Like once you get the basics, it becomes reiterative, redundant, but it also allows you to get those reps in to be successful, much like sports.
Yes.
Right. And at the time, Enterprise had the best management and training program. It was called the MIT program, right?
Nice.
And so I thought, okay, and they had this culture that was known for celebrating the success, right? So you sort of get that gratification that feels a lot like sports for doing a job well done. And they also were building this exciting culture where they wanted the MITs to sort of get together periodically, talk about the future. They had great career development. And it was sort of set up where if you achieved A, B, C, D, then the outcome was, E. That's sort of how it was set up. Go achieve X, then Y becomes available. Whether that was an assistant manager, a manager, or even going into another division of the business. So I thought, yeah, that feels a lot like sports to me at the time. So for me, it was the best next step. Right? And so I took it on and I was out there in suits, washing cars, vacuuming cars. So it also had this bit of like grit to it that felt like sports as well. You roll up your sleeves, you do the work, you're part of a large team. And so for me, it worked out great. Right? I was able to come in and really learn a lot about the guest experience, how to sell customized products, how to work with local partners in the community as far as supporting body shops, supporting people that are dealing with some type of crisis at the time where they were just in an accident. So you sort of get to come in and save the day and get them on their way in a vehicle. So for me, it was perfect. It was perfect.
Man, so I love this because you transitioned into this and you found familiarity in this new business, and then you just said, let's go back to the basics. What works will always work. And you understand people. I mean, you can't be on a team and be as successful as you were in your career without understanding how people work
That's
and
right.
what they want. So, all right, I love this. So you kind of started, you got out of a professional career, started at the bottom, and then you slowly, worked your way up. How did you get into the corporate lifestyle of the bigger companies like Target and
Yeah.
PepsiCo?
Yeah. Part of, while it was at Enterprise, there was this supply chain logistics piece of the business that I really wanted to unpack and learn more about. And Target provided me that opportunity to learn logistics. At the foundation of every great business is a supply chain in order to meet the demand of the guest, right? And Target gave me that very traditional logistics supply chain work environment where I was able to go in and lead a multi-generational work group, which could sometimes be challenging. I also learned a lot about accountability while I was at Target, which I think is important. While you want to have a culture that celebrates the wins, I believe if you want a high-performing team, you also have to have a healthy culture of accountability. And so
that.
Target is where I had a chance to learn that as well. And it was a great environment, a great experience there. But at the end of the day, I felt like for me, I didn't want to be restricted to four walls, concrete tilt-up warehouse.
Right.
And so the Frito-Lay or PepsiCo at the time provided me with an opportunity to really spread my wings in consumer packaged goods, which was an opportunity to bring it all together.
Yeah.
Right. So you think about enterprise, some of the key takeaways from a leadership perspective, and then tying in the supply chain, you get to PepsiCo, and you bring it all together.
So everything now, so you're just slowly connecting the dots as you go along.
That's right. Look at evolution.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
evolution as a leader, in my opinion, I've been able to have success by gradually sort of graduating to the next level. And if you go back to sports, very similar. You may start on freshman, then you may get to JV, then you get to varsity, right? And so it's not to say those companies were freshman, JV, or varsity. Those are all very successful companies individually. But for me, it was picking up the leadership characteristics that I felt like were needed to get to ultimately like where I am today and feel equipped and have the tools in the toolbox to be successful.
I love that. And so you just follow the steps in chronological order, like to get to this place, I have to do this. To get to this place, got to do that. And so you just stayed the course, and then you slowly but surely got to the next level in life.
Absolutely. And I think it's so funny because there were times when I was early on in my career with Pepsi where I wanted the next big thing. And I wasn't quite ready for it. And it sort of goes back to what you touched on earlier, which is everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? And your higher power is sort of always like putting you in the right place at the right time. It may not be your time, but it's the right time.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so there were positions I wanted early on in my career with Pepsi, and I interviewed for them, and I didn't get the outcome that I was looking for. But when you reflect on it, everything happened the way it was supposed to lead me to where I am today. And that I'm grateful for. Right? So naturally, I feel like I got the right position at the right time where I was able to have a high level of success. Right? Versus you sort of see some people that get positions and you think like, ooh, I don't know if that was the right move.
Yeah.
Right?
I know what you're talking about.
Right? And we see it, right? It's a reality. But I would say from my career, being a president for Flynn Wendy's today, I feel like my experiences over the last 20 years equipped me with the tools that I need to be very successful today. So from logistics, supply chain, advanced auto parts, I was able to really dive into development of, from site selection to ground up builds to leasing sales floors of Pep Boys and, sort of coming up with new strategies and how to be successful in it, which was at the time a new region for advanced auto parts coming to the West Coast. So working through the challenges of really standing up a stable supply chain to support the demand of the guest in a new geography, running the West at the time. And all of that sort of ties into what I do today. Without that experience, I don't know that I'd be as successful in essentially taking Flynn Wendy's from 187 restaurants to 311 restaurants today.
That's amazing.
Right? So,
That's amazing.
I do feel like it's been an evolution of leadership experiences to set me up for the success that I'm having today.
I love that. So now, when you were working on growing the number of restaurants that Flynn Group has, were you focused on the process or were you focused on the outcome?
It definitely is. I mean, these are some great questions.
because I've been thinking about this. I was like, I got to ask her something.
These are some great questions.
Sorry, you're in the hot seat.
Yeah, I know this is. Actually, thank goodness the temperature is getting here. It really is a balance of the two. I mean, you're spot on, right? Because it becomes really hard to scale in any business if you don't have processes in place, right? Like you have to have a strategic playbook that you can lift and shift that also has delivered results today, right? And it's not all pieces of that playbook will necessarily apply to acquisition restaurants, but you need to have your core pillars really set in place and what you believe to be the key components to being successful within your respective brand.
What would be your 4 main pillars?
Yeah. So number one, and this one is, so I think the best way to slice this is to say, like, Flynn Group as a whole, we care genuinely for people, right? Like, we want to win as one and we play like a champion, right? So those become like our North Star. And then when you peel it back to really the brand level, each individual, we have 7 brands at Flynn Group, and being the brand president for the Wendy's brand, for us, those 3 serve as like our true north. And if I had one additional for us, we always say, like, show up and show out, right? And you do that because when you step into a restaurant, you have to look at the business through the lens of the general manager. The general manager is on the front line, right? And our job is to reduce the complexity for the RGM, to give the RGM the greatest chance of success on a day-to-day basis.
So would you say complexity undermines execution?
It does, 100%, 100%, right? And showing up and showing out means, like, you're a spark plug when you step into that restaurant, right? Because the RGM is dealing with consumers, the community, their crew, whatever they may have going on personally, whatever new systems we may be rolling out. So we don't get a chance to show up and say, like, oh man, I'm having a bad day today. Like, no, we show up and you're a spark plug and you ignite the fire in every single restaurant, right? You find something to celebrate, and you find 2 tools that you're gonna coach each individual RGM on when you step into that restaurant, because we should be finding ways to remove potential roadblocks to improve their chances of success on a day-to-day basis.
I love that you're saying that you want to remove something versus adding something.
That's right.
Sometimes adding just adds more complexity.
That's right.
You got to make it simpler.
That's right.
I mean, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
How do you build? So, a lot of people don't really understand resilience, or they resist it. And I don't think that's something you can resist, because what you resist persists.
That's right.
How do you help these different stores and your employees and the people you work with build resilience?
Yeah, I think resiliency comes back to having a very thorough strategic playbook. You've heard the saying of, oh, who knows what tomorrow's going to bring?
Yeah, I've heard that many times.
A lot of people say that, right? And it's like, well, we should at least have a couple of plays in our playbook so that if tomorrow brings, like, total disaster, let's just say, we should have a play in that playbook that says, here's what we're going to do, right? So I don't believe, like, we do need to keep things simple, right? But you need to be prepared for just about anything that could occur.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And how much of that information travels down to the restaurant is also, like, we have to be the gatekeepers of some of the information that would overcomplicate the day-to-day. And I believe resiliency is tied to the team understanding that we are prepared, right? So that if you come across or suffer a setback, you can put it in perspective to say, like, we thought this could potentially happen, and here's how we pivot, right? I think resiliency sets in when people become stagnant. And I believe people are stagnant because you don't have a play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be prepared for potential outcomes maybe down a few layers versus like, this is the play, we're going to run the hell out of it and we're going to be successful. But what happens if it doesn't? What happens, right? And I see like my role as being the leader to set the team up for the unknown, right? And that keeps the team resilient. So if option A doesn't yield the results, what's option B, right? And then what's option C? Versus option A didn't work. Guess we got to all get together and get to the drawing board and try to figure this thing out.
I imagine that your team they have a lot of comfort in knowing that you have plan A, B, C, D, or E. And it's because, your will to win.
That's
and
right.
your discipline from basketball.
That's right. And you know what? I think it's within a lot of us, right? You think about even you, Erica, right? And being a realtor, right? You don't know what the market is necessarily, what's going to necessarily happen in the market, right? The feds can meet and they can decide to cut rates, or they can say like, yeah, man, we're going to take 25 bips. You have to be prepared for both potential outcomes.
Yes.
Right. And I believe that some organizations, based on historical success, can sometimes be a bit blinded to the future potential outcomes, right? That could fall on the side of not ideal, right?
Yeah.
Because also, like, we have traditions that say, like, we trust this playbook because we've had success, right? So there's a part of you that says, like, well, and you've heard it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I've heard that so many times.
So many times, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's working, but you still should be preparing for a rainy day.
It's true.
Still be prepared for a rainy day. And I think the team finds comfort in that and knowing that we are prepared, and we call them pivots, right? So it's like, hey, it's a pivot if we need to. Never fall in love with your own idea to a point that you want to drive it forward, even if it's not yielding the results and you erode the business. That's how you lose trust.
Yeah, you can't fall in love with an idea that you created, because sometimes that will lead to devastation.
That's right.
I know that one of your biggest roles is creating culture and getting people ready to adapt to change.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those people? Because so many people don't want to adapt to change. They want to be comfortable, but how do you deal with those people? And then how do you get them from point A to point B? And what if they don't want to move with the change?
Yeah. This is another great. Who gave you these questions, Erica?
I thought about them last night.
Nothing.
I stalked you.
Being a transformational leader, there are a couple of things that, in my mind, you anticipate that every leader is going to move through the change process at their own pace. Right? So I think there are a couple of things or methods that I tend to lean into. Number one is being prepared with trustworthy analytics, right? So I think there's a difference in me coming in and saying, like, this is going to be so great, you're going to love it, right? But once again, you have to see the business through the lens of the RGM. And part of that is understanding why would they hold on to some of these old traditions if there really is a more optimized way to do things, right? It's about staying in your comfort zone. And how do you get someone to be okay with living and leading outside of their comfort zone? I think it's having, number one, like real, highly transparent conversations that build trust about where the organization is headed. And number two, it's also saying and showing the with them, like, what's in it for me? Like, here are the analytics behind it. Here are some of the results that we're seeing where we have it in play. And here's how we're going to support you as far as training, development, in order to get you there. Now, it doesn't always work like that, right? Those are some of the things we do. And I think you have to be okay following up with those leaders that are showcasing that, look, I'm going to continue to do it my way. So you have the follow-up, but at some point, you also have to be a realist to say, not every leader is going to make it through driving change in an organization. Like, that is a real conversation that people have to be comfortable having. The hopes are that, yeah, every leader makes it with you. But there are some leaders that say, like, yeah, like, I don't want to take this journey, right? And when you think about the dynamics of a restaurant being so multi-generational,
yes, very.
there and IT and from AI to ops tablets to new systems, are a real thing that most organizations in the QSR space are transitioning and going through at this time. And yeah, I mean, we want every leader to make it and drive through the change, because we truly believe, like, on the other side of it is a more pleasurable and optimized experience for an RGM where they can have more success. But at the end of the day, no different than me, I have to hold myself accountable to driving through that change with the team. Mm-hmm. And if some leaders say, like, I don't want to make that change, like, you have to be okay knowing that not every leader is going to make it through the change because they choose to opt out. Yeah. And that's okay too. It doesn't mean they're a bad leader. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means, like, hey, for them, they came to a fork in a road no different than I did, right? And they're choosing to take another route. Yeah. Right? And those instances are few and far between, but they do exist. Yeah.
That's great that you can recognize that because you were there at one point.
That's right.
Okay, we talked about resilience. Mm-hmm. We talked about leadership. Let's talk about discipline. If I remember correctly, you were telling me that lifting weights is easy for you, but running is difficult.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
And I know that because I hate running. So there is an internal dialogue you got going on in your head where you are literally, you're battling yourself saying, I want to stop, but no, keep going. Now, let's talk about the discipline. And I know a lot of this is going to come back to your professional sports days, but on those days where you're going to run because you want to do something hard so that way you can show up for your team and say, I did something hard, you do something hard.
That's right.
And you're holding yourself accountable. That's right. You're maintaining yourself as a true leader. When you have those moments where you are saying you're building up that resilience, that muscle to run, what does that internal dialogue look like, and how do you push past the bitch that says stop?
I'm like, do you really want to know what's going on up there?
I do.
Yeah, it is a real battle to do the things that I mentioned it before. You have to get outside of your comfort zone, and I truly believe the more time we spend outside of our comfort zone, we're building new skills, new muscles, right? New experiences that I feel like, for me personally, I crave, right? I want to feel like I'm continuing to grow and do things that maybe 5 years ago I wouldn't have done.
So you find comfort in discomfort.
I find comfort in discomfort, right? So mentally, the conversation that's happening is like, oh gosh, really? Do you want to be, I don't know, you could just go for a walk. You really don't need to run. There's other ways to burn calories. Are you sure this is what you should be doing? I am trying to talk myself out of it the entire time. And the reason why I don't quit is because I say to myself, what would you do if a member of your team quit? What would you do? Would you want them to push through? And the answer is always, yep, I would want them to push through. Right? So I do think about, I have a high level of accountability for the development of my team. Right? And I know when I do the things that I don't enjoy, I'm making myself a better leader for them. Right? So that's what keeps me going, even when I want to hit stop and tell Adrian, I'm done running for the day. Right? Yeah.
But you don't. You keep.
But I don't.
Keep pushing forward.
You got to keep pushing forward. Yeah.
How do you help your team find comfort in discomfort?
Yeah. It's little things. I go back to sports on this because I'm a firm believer, and the more reps you get doing things you don't like to do, the better outcomes you will drive and have in life. So for me and my team, I invite them to my workouts. There are a lot of them now that are doing like fitness. They're on their own fitness journey.
You're getting your team fit?
Oh, we're all doing we have a group chat where we send photos of our hikes. We send videos of a run. We send videos of a workout. And what I say is I believe the leaders sort of pick up some of those characteristics of their leader, right? So I feel like some of what I believe in, they believe in as well, right? You have to have that alignment. But the piece that oftentimes leaders struggle with is work-life balance, right? And it is my job to model that for them so they can see if Rasheeda can do it, they can do it. Yeah. So inviting them to some of these workouts puts them in some of these positions where they're like, oh man, I really don't want to work out. But they do it, right? Because I'm like, hey man, where's your workout? Here's my workout for the day. And so it's sort of like we're sharing that experience from afar, and it's a cool accountability piece too.
I love this. This is going back to the show up and show out.
It is, right?
And you're changing their physiology. So much in life changes when you change your physiology, even just the way you breathe.
That's
It can
it.
slow down your brain waves and help you just go back to a neutral state.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And, we use this term operational athletes, right? So the team, one of our big focuses for this year is evolving to operational athletes, right? And what that means is like really mastering your craft when it comes to controlling the controllables within the four walls of the restaurant, right? And how do we do that? We have tools to do that, whether that's Rosnet, sales forecasting, labor forecasting, right? So we utilize that term because I do believe there's a high transferable or a transfer of skills from sports into the business world,
Of course, yeah.
right? So, yeah.
How do you personally deal with the uncontrollables? I'm sure that one's difficult. It is difficult for me, but I want to know
Yeah.
how you deal with that.
Yeah. You have to avoid the knee jerk, right? You have to. And it goes back to like having a high EQ, right? Some people call it emotional intelligence, right? So I think part of being a strong leader for your team is being cool under pressure. And I think the uncontrollable can sometimes lead to those moments where leaders don't always show up in a characteristic way. So when some of the unforeseen or unpredictable happens, you need to like digest it and build a response versus a reaction, right? Because it's during those moments where you can fracture your trust and also your brand that you've built with your team,
Yeah.
right? So whether it's a game that's going down to the wire and it's headed to overtime and you lose by one, you don't want a coach that comes completely out of character. And, I've been in those moments, and when the coach leaves the locker room, you're like, whoa, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was out of character. So putting that into like the business world, I can tell you and I could share with you, like for our business, P1 is typically, January is typically a slower month for QSR. Right? When you think about what's happening in the rest of the world, it's like everybody's focused on better for you, getting healthy. Not everybody's going to Wendy's for a Baconator in January. People are signing
are
up
delicious, by
at
the way.
Planet Fitness, right?
Yeah.
And so we typically have a slower than seasonal month in January. Well, this year it was more compressed than what we've seen historically. Now, you have one or two things you can do in that moment. You can come out of character and become a micromanaging leader because you're so worried about the outcomes, or you can put it in perspective and say, it's 35 days, right? And we still have the rest of this year to go, right? And you unpack it to identify where there was some real opportunity, right? And quickly lean in, have the right conversations to get the team on track, right? And then people come out with the learnings, you apply it to the current period, and you continue to push forward, right? Versus coming out of it and completely turning into a different leader and exhibiting uncharacteristic like traits, which burns the trust with the team.
How important is it to omit ego in a leadership role?
Oh, yeah. I always tell my team, title's out the window. Title's
good.
out the window. Right? You have to be honored and humbled every single day for the opportunity we get to change the lives of leaders and people in the community. Right? For me, it's something that I just love having an opportunity to do.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity to change the lives of people,
Yeah.
right? And they're potentially their entire family's lives, right? Depending on the amount of wealth you're able to create for individual leaders.
So you really just like being a servant to the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where I find my joy.
Yeah.
That's where I find my joy.
When did you figure that out? How old were you?
Oh, man. I would say Pepsi is really where I did a lot of growing up as a leader while I was at PepsiCo. And servant leadership was a big focus. And I think when you're a young leader in your 20s and 30s, you do tend to have this like hothead mentality.
Yeah.
Right? You sort of like, you're pulling down winds, you start to puff your chest out a bit, and you're like, yeah, I did that. And, versus like, no, we did that. And so I would say Pepsi is where I really started to hone in on servant leadership and what it means to essentially like create opportunity for others and be more of a servant to help lead and guide people to where they want to be in life.
I think you always go so much further when you're empowering other people versus empowering yourself, because there's a greater joy in giving somebody versus
Yes.
taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Uh-oh. I wasn't nervous before, but because you just shifted in your seat, I'm really nervous.
I'm excited to hear your answers to these
Uh-oh.
ones. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, and how will that impact the lives of other people?
Ooh, yeah. And did you chat GPT these questions? No, I'm kidding. Okay, hey, here we go. So I see myself as being a chief operating officer, preferably with Flynn Group, moving on to do bigger things, bolder things with the organization. The thing about Flynn Group that I absolutely love is we really are a family, right? And it's so unique. My current boss, he's the chief operating officer. And I call him my little brother. My wildly more successful younger brother is Ron Bellamy. And the relationship we have is amazing. And I've been with other organizations, and I know how hard it is to find that. And so I truly value it. So in 5 years, I see myself as a chief operating officer with Flynn Group, leading side by side with Ron Bellamy and some of the current C-suite leaders there today.
It's amazing. And how will that further impact the lives of people that work with you?
Yeah, the second part of the question. I think we will continue to do the work that we're doing today, right? Will the size of the organization grow over the next 5 years? Absolutely. It provides us with more opportunity to change the lives of more leaders across more states and countries, right? So currently we're in New Zealand as well as Australia.
Wow.
Wow. So we have Wendy's and Pizza Hut overseas. So I see having an opportunity to impact the lives of more individuals on a broader scale, which is very exciting.
That's amazing. Does now your company, it sounds like it has a really good leadership program, which just trickles down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have this thing, and it's called Build a Kick-Ass Team.
I like that.
Right. And, that starts with me. Right, and being able to identify talent that, has an opportunity to go do more in the organization, and building an individual development plan to support them on their journey, much like someone did for me early on in my career. Right, so it's a great development plan, and we continue to revise and sort of evolve what it looks like as we grow as a total organization as well.
That's beautiful. You're always just trying to pay it forward.
Absolutely, I think it's key. Right? Especially when you enjoy doing what you do, you want to share that with others, right? I remember early in my career, I don't know if other people made the future positions look fun.
You know what? I don't think that they ever did.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like I want people to have this desire to become a brand president. Like, I want them to see it and say, not only is it attainable and possible for me, but damn, it looks like a lot of fun too. Right?
Yeah. Why would you ever want to do something that's not fun?
That's right. I mean, it's not all fun, but I want to make it look sexy. You know what I mean? That's what I want.
Yes, girl, you make it look sexy.
Hey, that's what I want. Come on.
So, second question.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self?
I would tell my 20-year-old self to maybe, this is tough, to maybe have made a move a year sooner.
Move it up.
Mm-hmm. I would have said the fork in the road came after Portland, and then there was Charlotte and Connecticut. I probably would have told my younger self, take the pivot after Portland.
Man,
I would have.
That's great.
I would have. And the reason why is knowing what I know now, 2 years, so say 2 more years of experience under my belt outside of sports, would I already be in the C-suite? Don't know. Maybe. Right?
During those times, why did you not move it up?
Yeah, basketball was my first love, and I'd had a tremendous amount of success. And you speak with any athlete, walking away is one of the toughest things to do. Look at players that retire and they come out of retirement, right? Because it is so tough to give up, because a lot of your learnings and growth in life came by way of sports for me, right? And for other athletes. So you almost feel like you're losing a bit of your individual, like, self-identity by giving this thing up. So it's scary.
Yeah. So I want to tie the end
Yeah.
to actually the beginning
Yeah.
where we were talking about you soul searching.
Yeah.
So what was that? What was that conversation like in your head when you were soul searching and trying and leaving this world that you knew behind?
Yeah, it was scary. For me, it was scary. It really was. And I didn't have the answers. But I knew if I surrounded myself with enough good people, I would be okay. Because there was a time in life where I didn't have basketball, right? There was a time in life. And how was I able to become so successful in basketball? I surrounded myself with good people.
Yeah.
And so to myself, I thought, you can do this. Use that same playbook, which is surround yourself with good people, with good intentions, and you will be okay.
I need to get one of these playbooks.
Hey, look, listen. It's tucked away up here. Oh, it's madness. You don't even want to see it.
But this is great. I mean, I'm literally tapping into the mind of an athlete, and I see that your world and your planning and your strategy, and you're very methodically different. But I'm sure it came with a lot of broken bones. It came with a lot of injuries,
That's
a
right.
lot of time on the court, a lot of training, all that.
That's right.
So my last question.
Yeah.
My favorite question.
Uh-oh.
What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for my family, for my partner, Mallory. I'm grateful for Ron and Greg Flynn, the Flynn Group, that's provided me with an opportunity that allows me to change the lives and support the lives of my family. I'm grateful for my team, for peace of mind and sobriety. Yeah, and new friendships and connections, right? I wouldn't be here today without you, having met you, right? So I'm grateful for new connections and always being able to meet other leaders within the industry, their respective space, that are doing big things to really change the course for the future, for future leaders, for future women, for just our local communities as well. So
I love that.
Yeah.
So you're actually going to be the first guest that's ever going to get a fourth question.
I like feeling special.
My fourth and final question
Yeah.
is, what is one piece of advice you would give to women who are trying to level up from one place to the next, whether it's life or in career?
This is a great one. And I want to make sure I get this right. So, what I would say is I believe we thrive in spaces where we can authentically be ourselves, right? Avoid spaces where you feel like you have to show up something other than who you really are, or someone other than who you are. Mm-hmm. You're great as you are today. You're beautiful as you are today, right? So find strength and passion and purpose in that. And for me, I feel like there are so many spaces that want to put you in a box, that want to say, this is how you should show up. This is what we should be doing, right? And I feel like you're going to be the most successful when you find spaces where people and peers and leaders say, you know what, you be you. Only then, when you can authentically show up, can you truly maximize your true potential. Anything else, I would consider to be unacceptable, personally.
I mean, straight from Flynn Group's president's mouth, you heard it. Be yourself.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's an unlock, and it feels so amazing when you get to just be you,
So
right?
good.
Be a
So
badass leader. Just be you.
Dang, I got goosebumps.
You do.
I'm wearing a blazer, and I got
Me too, man.
goosebumps.
Let's do it. Look, I'm. Yeah.
The studio engineer has goosebumps.
Yeah.
Rasheeda, you have just given so much great information, dropped so many bombs, and I think that you laid it out in a way that is just so understandable. And
Thank you.
you made it really easy to comprehend, which sometimes a
you.
lot of people don't do. So I want to say thank you so much for coming on the
Absolutely.
show, dropping all these incredible bombs, and just helping people intentionally improve their life one
Yeah.
day at a time. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome,
Oh,
Erica.
yeah.
I've only known you for a small period of time, but you're just fantastic, and I really appreciate the time to sit down
We've
and chat
collapsed time.
with you. Yeah.
So
yeah.
before we end, where can people find you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, right? You can find me on LinkedIn under Rasheeda C. Always posting updates and content on the team and our journey and how the business is progressing. And that's the best way to locate me.
To follow your journey?
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
Yeah.
nice. Well, Rasheeda, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.